Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's Kaylee here, and you are tuning in to episode number 260. Let me begin by giving a huge welcome to our founding Fierce Factor Society members. We had our first mastermind call last week, and it was incredible. We talked about 5 critical mindset shifts we need to make as a leader to build a high-performing team. Here's what I know. The past 6 months have been challenging for many aesthetic and wellness business owners. And this next 6 months are going to be uncertain and impermanent, but businesses built on strong foundations will prevail. And truth be told, a strong foundation is the catalyst for business success, team success, founder success, and ultimately financial success, because a strong foundation is the key to building a sellable business that attracts the highest value buyer. I remember when I started my business 9.5 years ago, I couldn't imagine that I'd build something that anyone would want to buy. In fact, I didn't think I'd ever want to sell my business. But an interesting thing happens when you start building a team and your company grows legs, this idea of scaling, where you gain traction without the investment of more of your own time. It's freaking exhilarating. I'm not going to lie. You start watching your bank account grow and sales come in every day, whether you're working or not. And let's be honest here, not everyone accomplishes this. To get to that point, it takes tremendous grit, grind, blood, sweat, tears, a lot of tears, questioning yourself, questioning everything, your plans going completely wrong, people disappointing you, investments that produce zero return, hours upon hours of missing out on fun, loss of relationships, the list goes on. So you can imagine how attractive buying a business, which has already been set up for success, could be to someone who can literally plug in a few efficiencies and sit back and collect the Benjamins. That is why companies and individuals buy businesses, to capitalize on already developed infrastructure and human capital to complement or supplement their existing ecosystem, which is really the point of our chat for today. I want to have some dialogue with you about one of the biggest conversations happening in our industry right now, private equity. This conversation is so big, in fact, that almost every single one of our Pop Leadership Academy members have received a call or multiple calls from private equity investors offering to evaluate and make offers on their businesses. And the irony of this PE activity in aesthetics is that I don't think that many aesthetic practice owners truly understand how to best position themselves to have an empowered and educated conversation with someone offering to invest into or purchase their business. In fact, I don't think most business owners really understand what makes a business attractive to a buyer, because unless you started your company with a sales strategy in mind in the first place, why the heck would you? So this is a conversation we have a lot in our academy, and I actually made a recent post on Instagram engaging founders in this conversation, asking the question, is private equity helping or hurting our industry? I asked, is bigger always better? And how can self-funded startups compete? And let me tell you, the DMs blew up. And here's the truth. We're all having this discussion in a way that, I don't know, kind of makes med spa founders appear powerless to big, bad private equity. But I don't believe this is the case at all. Like any external circumstance we are all facing, economic fluctuations, socio-political uncertainties, AI advancements. Remember the good old pandemic we have long forgotten about 5 years ago? We can always control our responses to uncontrollable circumstances. And I happen to believe that we can use just about any situation to our own advantage advantage, including private equity cash flow activity. So my goal in this next 20 minutes is to give you some very matter-of-fact knowledge about private equity and to share some of my own perspective on the topic, share a bit about how I'm personally interacting with private equity and advising our clients at KLC through the process. I'm going to give a straight to the point breakdown covering the following parts. What is private equity? We're going to talk about an overview of the med spa industry and PE interest, why PE is interested today, the pros and cons of partnering with private equity, staying competitive as a self-funded founder-led med spa, setting up your business for a high multiple sale. We're going to talk about how to understand the EBITDA multiple, and I'm going to give you some advice on navigating and interacting with private equity buyers. So I'll kind of kick this off by sharing a practical scenario that might help you understand how these interactions are happening. I had a client, we'll call her Dr. Susie, who recently called me asking to chat about how to navigate an offer she had on her business. She said someone, we'll call him Private Equity Pete, was buying 3 businesses in her area, and she would have an opportunity to sell her business as one of those 3. The others who were partnering with Pete were reputable med spas, and so it all seemed really legit. She was like, these are great competitors of mine. He's going to buy up 3 in the area, and if I want to be one of the 3, I got to act fast, right? So he told her she could potentially take advantage of a 10x multiple on her business if she were to sell today. And they discussed the details once she sent over her financial statements and a list of other detailed documents sharing the ins and outs of the business. So let's just pause here to think about this. If this happened to you, how would you respond? Well, Susie felt honored and actually a bit elated. And she started thinking about what a business valuation 10 times what she was earning annually could mean in a sales scenario. She started thinking about all of the opportunities that this kind of cash injection could afford her in her life. But at the same time, something felt a little uneasy. She wasn't sure if she should share all of this detailed private information with him without having some kind of representation or strategy going into the negotiation. Smart. Trust your instincts, ladies. Okay. So that's when she called me. And so we walked through a few things. I do want to mention that I just have a philosophy as a total side note. If somebody is pressuring you and telling you that you have to make a decision on something today and it will not be available in the future, run for your life. For me, that is an absolute hard no red flag, because if it's not going to be a deal that's good in a year from now, it's not a deal I want. Okay. So that is right there. I'm like, no. Okay. So we kind of had a chat about this. So first, I think it's important to understand what private equity is. So private equity, or PE, refers to investment firms that raise funds from investors. So they get investment from people or private companies who essentially want to invest in businesses that are not listed on the public stock exchange. So private equity firms, their goal is to enhance the value of their portfolio companies. So these would be the several companies they own, through streamlining. So operational improvements, strategic guidance, and significant capital investment, ultimately seeking to sell those companies at a big profit after a few years. So essentially they're doing like a home remodel, like a flip, right? So they're coming into these businesses, just doctoring them up and then selling them for a shit ton of money later. So for example, these firms would take the infrastructure and purchasing power they have to streamline costs. So what this means for Dr. Susie, as an example, is that private equity Pete will inject a bunch of money into her business and essentially become her boss as she works to hit numbers. So this would be called an earnout over the next 3 to 5 years. So similar to any investment, the equity partners are the first people that would get paid back. And so therefore they have control over how money is spent, what decisions are made, et cetera. Okay. So then Susie and I talked about just an overview of the med spa industry and private equity interest. The med spa industry is combining now with, we talk medical aesthetics, traditional spa services, now wellness, regenerative, and functional medicine. It's booming. The industry presents a very lucrative opportunity for investment. So private equity is extraordinarily attracted to the med spa space due to its significant growth potential, recurring revenue models, and the increasing popularity of cash pay treatments, right? Retail medicine. So the market's evolution and integration of advanced technologies and, of course, continued innovation in the space really contribute to this really big allure for private equity firms that see a way to scale operations swiftly and maximize their profits. Make no mistake, PE's goal is to make money. Okay. Why are they interested today? Okay. Well, the obvious reasons, the same reasons we're all interested and taking advantage of and love being in this industry. Growing consumer interest in aesthetic procedures, high margins associated with aesthetic and wellness services, opportunities for consolidation and scaling operations, and ability to access new technologies and treatment modalities. So, for example, partnering businesses with specific strengths to advance each other's gaps. So when they look at their portfolio of businesses, they may have one business, like they may have an accounting firm that could do all the accounting for all of their other businesses, right? So they're leaning into strengths of certain businesses to tap into opportunities in the other to build the strong portfolio that they can go and resell. So next, Dr. Susie and I talked about some of the pros and cons of partnering with private equity for med spa owners. So one pro, access to capital. So private equity Pete can be one kind of resource to provide substantial financial resources for growth, helping her expand her facilities, invest in technology, etc. He may be able to provide expert guidance. So if he has industry experience and can offer strategic insights that drive operational efficiency. In this case, Susie already had a strong business and certainly more experience than Pete and his team had. So the big pro would be obviously access to capital and then ultimately a sale that would inject a bunch of cash into her bank account. Okay. So then we talk about some of the cons. So one is when you talk about a private equity partnership, we're talking about that loss of control. You know, in general, founders might have to relinquish some control over business decisions and direction. That can obviously, one, alter their brand's identity. So if you're someone who's like, I built my business so I never have to put up with someone telling me what to do, well, this is something to take into serious consideration. Another something to be aware of are cultural shifts, because now you're talking about, you know, a partner who is very focused on profit. And so this might lead to cost-cutting measures that compromise the personalized service and nurturing environment that boutique and high-end med spas really thrive on, probably what you built your business on. Hey, leader, I know the journey to building your greatest potential can feel overwhelming. You're setting big goals, navigating resistance, and trying to stay true to who you are in the process. That's exactly why I created the Fierce Factor Society. This isn't just another membership, it's a launch pad where ambitious women like us come together to grow, lead, and thrive. It's a space to take those big dreams and make them real step by step with the support and tools you need to succeed. If you've ever felt like you were made for more but didn't know exactly which step to take next, the Society is your space to access the tools, strategies, and support to unlock your next level of leadership. Let's do this together. Visit klcconsultants.com/Fierce Factor Society to learn more. Can't wait to see you there. And then a general con for our industry is just employee retention challenges. You know, PE-backed entities can attract top talent with lucrative salaries and then ultimately equity offerings. So what they can come in and do is say, hey, come work for us. We can offer you a big salary. And then ultimately in 3 years, when we sell this whole portfolio, there'll be a little cut or a percentage for you, right? So given that that actually happens, which is a whole nother conversation, but you know, that is kind of the promise that they quote unquote have. And this sort of creates competition for independent med spa owners. It's a money game. And I've done a whole podcast about this, about, you know, protecting the integrity of the relationships that you have with your people and helping them understand the value of what you offer for them to be employed by your company. So when your competitors are all getting injected with private equity funding, you know, how do you stay competitive as a self-led or independently funded founder-led med spa? So here's how to maintain competitiveness in a PE-dominated market. And this is part of the conversation that I had with Dr. Susie as well. I think that and if you are an independent med spa owner, you should leverage your unique advantage. Number one, personalized service. So you could highlight that this individualized care and attention that clients receive in a founder-led setting. So ladies, stop giving an infomercial, by the way, for your BBL device and start talking about your story, why you started your business, who you serve, what kind of results your patients experience, and how that makes them feel, right? People do business with brands because of the story of what built them, right? They connect emotionally, and that's how you develop trust. And ultimately, every transaction in human history is all built on an exchange of trust. So this is so important. Number 2 is investing in employee development. So you can foster career growth through ongoing training and mentorship programs. You can personally mentor and develop humans. And this, ladies, is what creates A players and employee loyalty and retention. And then consider the idea of this work-life balance, right? Offering flexibility and non-financial perks that contribute to an enjoyable workplace culture. Because you know my philosophy, if your team members are happy and empowered, they go above and beyond and create a sanctuary where your patients feel special and want to come back and want to spend their money with you, right? So then Susie and I chatted about what it takes to set your business up for a high multiple sale. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I want you to think about the housing market. So let's, for example, imagine someone came and knocked on your door and said, I want to buy your house. This actually happened to me recently. Someone wrote a note and said, someone's interested in buying your house. What would you like to sell it for? Is it even for sale? Okay. So do you think the next question they would say, send me all of the information about your house, the history of the repairs, the upgrades, the details about your appliances, the light fixtures and the decor, and then I'll tell you what your house is worth? Of course not. You'd say, sure, I'll sell my house, but it's worth whatever I decide to sell it for. And I'll wait until I find someone who is willing to pay that price. Okay. It's like any investment you make. It's all about the perception of value. Think about walking into a secondhand store. I remember going vintage shopping in LA for my 25th birthday. Actually, it was so fun. I went with a few girlfriends up to Hollywood. We had brunch at the Chateau Marmont, and actually happened to be on the day of the Oscars. So we sat and had some mimosas and we watched the movie stars getting picked up in their limos. It was such an epic birthday. But afterward, we went vintage shopping in West Hollywood. And I remember items, some 50, 75 years old, random clothing, right? Not even some special brand. It was literally higher priced than any brand new model of the same exact thing because it had been worn or owned previously by someone noteworthy. And people were willing to pay premium prices because of the charm and authenticity of these pre-owned items. So those items were worth whatever somebody was willing to pay for them. It was just about finding the right buyer. The same goes for our business, ladies. Someone who knocks on your door trying to buy your business should not be the one telling you what it's worth. Essentially, they can tell you what they are willing to pay, but only you decide the value of your business. Don't forget that. So we have to show up empowered and with the knowledge and confidence that we own that transaction. We own that negotiation, and we need to get ourselves the support to show up and represent ourselves that way. So Susie and I then talked about how to set her business up to attract a premium buyer, okay? To maximize your business's appeal to potential buyers, including private equity PE, you want to consider these things. Strong financials. So that means starting today, ladies, maintaining clean, transparent financial records that showcase profitability. I recommend a minimum 30 to 45% profit margin if you want to sell at the highest multiple. And honestly, if you want to sell a business, if it's even worth the sale for you. And if you are not there, get some coaching, get some advice, get some support. There needs to be some strategic intentionality around your business model and how you are staffing and building the infrastructure of your business to create profitability in your business. That is a leadership non-negotiable, okay? You're going to want to have stable revenue streams. That means diversified, but clean and highly profitable services to create independently successful revenue channels. So that means not I just have people coming in, Botox is my loss leader or whatever to attract people. None of that business, right? Strong, successful revenue channels. Scalability potential. Buyers will look for a business model that demonstrates the potential for physical and operational expansion, which means if you're the primary breadwinner for the business, that's going to be very difficult or take several intentional years or a lot of money to replace you, which of course impacts the value of the business. And remember, if you are the primary service provider and you're the primary CEO, CFO, CMO, COO, that's a lot of people that the potential buyer has to replace to do all the things that you're doing. So as you're building, we're thinking about bringing leadership into the team and people who can operate independently without us, okay? And then a strong brand identity. This is like your mission, vision, values, cultivating a recognizable and reputable brand that aligns with consumer values, meaning you have a very distinct attraction and retention strategy that draws high value patients and team members and keeps them, okay? Keeps them coming back and keeps them wanting more. So let's talk about this EBITDA multiple, okay? This is like, what is this language? Like Chinese, right? Understanding the EBITDA multiple. So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And this is a commonly used metric to assess a company's profitability. So the EBITDA multiple is a valuation tool often used to determine how much a business is worth based on its earnings. So a calculation very high level would look like this. A med spa generating $4 million in revenue and having a $2 million EBITDA. So this is the income and then all that stuff put back in, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. The multiple is calculated as follows. So let's say you've got, in this case, a $2 million EBITDA and a buyer is offering you a 6x or the multiple of 6, which means 6 times EBITDA. So you would calculate 2 million times 6, the business would be worth, in this case, $12 million. And of course, expect to spend at least a few million in taxes during the transaction. So now back to Susie. She was running an 8 million annual revenue business with an EBITDA of about 4 million. Very beautifully, highly profitable business. So using this high level math, at a 10x multiple, the business would be worth $40 million. Pretty incredible, right? But also consider this, at a 5x multiple, the business is worth $20 million. So that's how powerful this multiple is. And not to mention the upside. If she was to hang on to her business for a couple more years, increase that EBITDA by another 2 million, that would add an additional 20 million to her business valuation. Would you hang on another 2 years for another $20 million? Okay, so this is why I strongly encourage you not to rush to give up any business equity unless you have a partner who can literally quadruple the value of your business without you personally doing one thing differently. Remember that no one would buy your business for 40 million if they didn't think they could turn around and sell it for 80. So here's the deal. You are sitting on a pot of gold, and do not let anyone convince you otherwise. It's not that complicated. Building a successful business is very simple. Hire the best people, serve the best customers, grow yourself so you have the skills to lead it. Slow down and focus. Focus on the basics. That is it. It is not a flashy new anything. It's the boring, unsexy basics, and then you give it time to grow, okay? All right, I hope this has been helpful. And P.S., I have a premium resource available for our society members. It's a due diligence checklist. So this is essentially a full-blown outline with a laundry list of items that a high value business buyer would look for to evaluate at the time of purchase. So you can check your membership site and your weekly momentum guide to access this resource. And if you're not a member yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Let's go sign up at klcconsultants.com/Fierce Factor Society. And last thing I want to note here, if you're not anywhere close to the point of wanting to sell your business, our academy is designed to help you build a plug and play business that is a joy to show up to every day because it's built on a strong foundation that will lend itself to high profit margins, clean systems, and operational excellence. And that kind of business will stimulate a bidding war when you are ready to exit. The work starts now, not when you're ready. And ask anybody who's at that point where they're like, well, I'm ready to retire and I guess I need to stick it out another 5 years because I am the bottleneck in my business, right? And we're seeing this all over the place as, the PE comes in, they're like, just kidding. I've looked under the hood and I don't have any interest in taking over this sort of situation that's happening here. You are in control, okay? It's all about what you choose to do as a leader and how you choose to build your business. All right, leader, thank you for tuning in today. I hope this was helpful. I will see you same place, same time next week. Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.